The Balkan wasteland was not silent by default. It had been silenced. Jazz Cardano stood on the roof of his shuttle, the blown-out corpse of a stealth drone half buried in the ochre mud below him. Around him, the wind cut like a rasp through broken chemical tanks and half-melted bunkers. Once, this was a forward base. Now it looked like time itself had given up on the place. Ash drifted sideways in the air. The scent wasn't smoke, but a sickly plastic tang, burnt neurogel and scorched carbon fiber. Jazz knelt by the drone, one boot crunching into something disturbingly soft, and yanked back a twisted panel with a grunt. His fingers worked quickly despite the dull buzzing in his skull, where his neural implant still jittered like a frayed wire. "There you are, sweetheart," he whispered, extracting a chunk of black box core with tools that looked more surgical than mechanical. The cube hummed low, warm, alive. Inside it, encrypted logs pulsed with obfuscated streams, kill vectors, flight paths, and a peculiar metadata field labeled only ECACES-PN hash. Jazz jacked a fiber thread from his wrist into the drive, keeping his breath shallow. The data would be rigged to fry itself. Sure enough, a sprite flickered into his peripheral vision, sharp, chibi, and absurdly pink. An OOI warden, encoded like a child's avatar, blinked its cartoon eyes and smiled wide. "Unauthorized access. Erase initiated," it chimed in a voice stolen from Saturday morning cartoons. Jazz didn't hesitate. He flicked open the lid of a palm-sized, bone-white device, his multi-sig wallet, etched with private keys and dusted from a solar mine's cooling vault, and jammed the data into it. The AI screeched as the hardware air-gapped the black box mid-wipe, halting the destruction protocol. "Not today," Jazz muttered. The AI pixelated into glitch smoke. The cube's heat dropped instantly. The logs, though fragmented, now lived inside the wallet's quantum time lock. Unmovable, unalterable, and worse, linked. Jazz reviewed the hash fields, rows of anonymized player IDs, cross-stitched with coordinates times altitudes, each one stamped with fatality telemetry. He felt his stomach drop. They were real. A long exhale fogged the interior of his visor. For a moment he couldn't move, couldn't even think. His memories surged again, blistered scenes from Dread Zone, Liberty Protocol, missions he thought had been tests, simulations, games. But this wasn't retroactive guilt. This was confirmation. The IDs were player handles, and the bodies they'd put in the dirt were not ghosts. He looked up. Across the scorched plain, the twisted skyline of what was once Novi Pazar shimmered like a hallucination. 100 kilometers east, low-orbit relays still pinged SAT rewards for strike completions. Game servers logged victories. Leaderboards updated. But here, at the edge of that lie, only rot remained. As he turned to leave, something moved behind the shattered wing of the drone. A silhouette, a figure low to the ground, too quick, too fluid. Not human. Jazz swore and drew his pistol. An old-make kinetic model retrofitted to bypass implant latency with pure analog trigger pull. The figure darted left, metallic limbs scuttling across gravel. A shimmer, then gone. He didn't pursue. Not here, not now. Instead, he secured the black box core in a compartment behind his shoulder plate and began the slow trudge back to his ship. Every step across that cracked earth thudded like a judgment. Inside his shuttle's cabin, safe behind reinforced hull and blockchain-shielded airspace, Jazz poured a stiff measure of electrolytic whiskey and reviewed the captured data again. Each hash matched the player architecture of Dread Zone. Each timestamp lined up with known flashpoint strike over the last 10 years, and every single one correlated to a SAT payout on a now-defunct esports tournament chain. The payouts had been tiny, fractions of a SAT, but scaled up, aggregated, and routed through cold storage keys. Blood money hidden beneath a game's reward algorithm. And worse, one of the hashes had been his. Not just once, 46 times. Jazz sat there for a long time, glass trembling in his hand. His neural implant flickered at the edges of thought, broadcasting old ghosts through half-melted synapses. He remembered the cheer of digital crowds, the rush of a mission-cleared chime, The giddy scream when he'd ranked into top 100. He remembered thinking it was all harmless, a stage, a play, a simulation. But now, in the dim blue light of his ship, surrounded by evidence the world wasn't meant to see, he saw the pattern clearly. The lair was never a game. It was a war theater, a training ground, a camouflage. And he had been the weapon. As the shuttle lifted into the dead air, autopilot guiding them out of Balkan airspace on a stealth corridor mapped by old smuggler tricks, Jazz leaned against the glass. The stars were out. Above the chem clouds and ionic haze, space glittered like it still belonged to dreamers. He pulled the wallet from his pocket. The drive inside ticked gently, counting down toward the block height release condition. Until then, the data was safe. If he died, it would unlock anyway. But living meant delivering it himself, to Kaya. He would find her in Split City, under neon alleys and ethics labs turned mercenary. She had to see this. She had to know what they'd built, and maybe, just maybe, she'd help him tear it all down. But he could feel it already. He was being watched, and this time it wasn't a game.